largest and oldest banks in the world today, HSBC has had two consistent traits: a global presence and an inclination to reinvent itself to stay with the times. In the age of digital, while many banks are struggling to clearly map and achieve their digital journeys, HSBC is well ahead, focusing on digitizing the bank and substantially increasing the number of online users. To help understand the strategy behind HSBC's digital drive, today it is my great pleasure to host John Hinshaw, Group Chief Operating Officer and Group Managing Director at HSBC in this fireside chat. With a mandate, among other things, to amplify profitability and digitize processes across at HSBC, there are few who could be as qualified as John. He has a proven track record of transforming organizations. As CIO at Verizon Wireless, as head of technology and operations at HP, and with the unique distinction of being the youngest CIO at a Fortune 100 company when he was at Boeing. His success across industries is grounded on his simple precept, which is each company is a tech company, either by the product being tech enabled or as a tech disruptor. A leader's role is to make things easier for customers and easier for employees across the company. Thank you so much, John, for making time to be with us today.
Thank you, Mohit. It's great to be with you today and celebrate the HSBC and Infosys partnership together. So really appreciate the chance to chat with you today.
Thank you so much, John. So, John, let's just get started. And as a teenager in Norfolk, Virginia, while recuperating from a knee injury, you taught yourself computer programming. And apparently, you wrote an inventory tracking program for the pizza franchise. From there to Verizon, to HP, to being the youngest CIO of Fortune 100 company, and now heading up the transformation of HSBC. What are some of the key experiences that you found very relevant to your position in HSBC?
Thank you, Mohit. Yeah, for the longest time, I was the youngest in most roles. I turned 50 this past year, so I guess I can't claim that anymore. But I was very fortunate to grow up just as technology was becoming on the forefront of how businesses operate. And today, no business can operate in any form or fashion without a very strong technology foundation. And in fact, most of the products that we all buy every day have technology embedded in them and have data flowing from them and have a life cycle that is fully digital. And so it's been fun for me, whether it was, as you said, early days of pizza restaurant inventory to my time in London 30 years ago. Actually, I had an internship at the American Embassy replacing Wang mainframes with 286 PCs back then, for those of you who remember those days. And then onward to get to work for some amazing companies, kind of the dawn of telecom with Verizon, and on to the Dreamliner program at Boeing, and then Hewlett Packard, and most recently in the past year at HSBC. And I would say what threads all of them together is transformation enabled by technology. At Verizon, it was the technology transformation that brought about wireless phones and broadband and so many of the products that we all use every day today on our mobile phones. At Boeing, the Dreamliner that many of you have been flying on, although maybe a little pause at the moment with the travel restrictions, is really a data center in the sky. It's a fully digitized airplane, constantly streaming data to the ground. And of course, Hewlett Packard, one of the foundational technology companies on the planet, helping so many customers transform. But financial services, I think, is the most interesting of any of my opportunities to help companies transform. Every single day, all of us rely on financial services companies. Hopefully, many of you have accounts with HSBC to enable your lives and to make payments, as I did just a few minutes ago, a couple of quick payments on my mobile phone with my HSBC account, to help corporations with their liquidity needs, with their bond needs, with their environmental financing needs, and to help many consumers and small businesses around the world with their financial services needs in the 65 countries that we serve in. So it's been a fun first year, and we have much to do at HSBC.
Thank you, John. I must say, first of all, that it's a lot that you packed into 50 years, and congratulations on that milestone. I don't think I've ever met anybody who's threaded so many industries, and I'm sure, as you mentioned, there's a lot of learning from, let's say, building a brand new airplane at Boeing, and then bringing some of that discipline to the other industries you served in.
There definitely is. And the common thread is transformation and differentiation of products through technology. I was fortunate at my time at Boeing and HP and now at HSBC to partner with great technology innovation firms as well. Infosys being one of our prime partners that we've worked with in all three companies. And it really does take that ecosystem of partners and that technology mindset as you create new products and capabilities for customers. And that's the world we live in today. And I think COVID, if anything, has made us all realize we're even more dependent on technology because we're not able to be out and about as much as we wanted to. And so I think, as you in your opening had mentioned, we've seen digital explode in our bank with the advent of COVID, and we believe that continue to be true. Customers are not going to go backwards. It's one of the interesting things of life. Once customers adopt a digital platform, they don't go the other direction. And so we do believe there's lots of momentum ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So picking up on that thread, John, because you spoke about the pandemic and the extra push that this has given to digital transformation. What are some of the themes that your teams have been working on to drive that transformation even faster? Because the pace of adoption has really increased exponentially.
Well, one of the things the teams are working on is to improve our credit and lending platforms, which our customers rely on loans and mortgages and credit cards from. And we want to be sure that that's a very easy experience to apply for credit with HSBC. And then as you have an account with us, to service that account, to inquire about that account, to get the right data on that account. It's a really important core function of our capabilities at HSBC, and we've got a transformation program going there. This became even more important this year because we helped governments around the world provide special financing and special programs to businesses that were struggling due to COVID. You probably, many of you heard of the PPP, Payroll Protection Program in the US that we underpinned for HSBC, for HSBC customers. Also the Bounce Back Loan scheme in the UK, where we provided loans to so many small businesses who were struggling in COVID. And around the world, there were 600 different government programs that we supported digitally to enable customers to get through the COVID challenges. So I think as I look back, the transformation was already underway, but we really had to accelerate it and be ready because our customers needed to interact with us digitally more than ever before. They needed to sign documents digitally. They needed to open accounts digitally. They needed to service digitally because they were working from home as well. They couldn't get to a branch. They couldn't get to a relationship manager to sign documents. And so we had to really step up the transformation in that credit and lending space. Another area that we're very focused on is our global trade programs. We're the largest global trade bank in the world. 93% of the world's GDP flows through us in some form or fashion. And the whole trade ecosystem is really important. And HSBC is a key element of that. And we're transforming that to be a broader partner within trade. So if you're trying to get goods from China into the Middle East, or from Europe into the United States, or any 2 points on the world, there's a whole digital element in how you do that we're transforming and creating for our customers. So that's another big area of focus. Then I would say third is our focus around Asia remains very important. There's a lot of growth happening in Asia. We are the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank with our foundations in Asia, as well as, of course, being headquartered in the UK. And so bridging Asia to the rest of the world is really important. Being there for the growth that's occurring in Asia, especially in areas like wealth management, is very important. So we're doing a lot of transformation in that space as well.
Thank you, John. It's a very comprehensive portfolio of transformation that you're driving. And you spoke about the digitization and the need for speed in the course of the pandemic. And it's something that I can attest to personally. I actually remortgaged my house in April. And as I was talking to the mortgage broker about who I should be going with, you'll be happy to know that even though HSBC was slightly more expensive, the broker told me that if you want to do this quickly before the lockdown comes, go with HSBC and everything, right? From the documentation through the identity verification, everything was online. So it's a remarkable testimonial to how the organization has grown and adapted during what has obviously been a very difficult time.
Well, thank you, Mohit. I'm really happy to hear we retained you as a customer for that mortgage through our process. And if you ever have any issues at all, I will be your personal customer service agent.
Well, thank you, John. It's actually even better than retailing. I actually transferred over from a different lender, and I was surprised that HSBC could act faster than my existing lender could
Well,
renew.
that's terrific. You're a great case study for us.
Thank you, John. And then again, you spoke about the bank, and when you were talking about the footprint, right? You spoke about the US PPP program. You spoke about the focus on on the Asian business. You also spoke about the participation that you had in the governmental programs in the Middle East and in Europe. And HSBC is such an international bank, and obviously you have a transformation mandate that really goes across the group. From a technology vision perspective, where do you believe HSBC is in the transformation journey, given complexity of your product lines? You offer pretty much everything as a universal bank, your global footprint. Where do you believe that the group is in the overall transformation that you embarked on?
So we've laid out a very aggressive transformation program over the next several years. We got that started last year and I think delivered quite a bit of capability as we talked about earlier, but we have much, much more to go this year, next year, through 2025. We have programs laid out that will continue to transform every element of our bank, as you mentioned. We are really the world's only global bank that covers the footprint that we do, that's not headquartered in the United States. And so we do provide very unique capabilities to the markets that we serve. We're celebrating 75 years of banking in the Middle East and the only bank, global bank to be there during that duration, bridging the Middle East to the rest of the world. Asia, as I talked about earlier, is at the core of our foundation and the core of our transformation going forward as more and more growth occurs in those markets. And then you look across our bank, whether it's our retail bank, our consumer focus around insurance products, our small business customers, our medium and large customers and their needs, as well as the global enterprises and their financial services needs, from global markets to global businesses. We cover the spectrum, and we have transformation programs going on in each and every one of those areas. And the way we do that, one of the things that I've spent a lot of time on is figuring out how to, as I call it, land all the airplanes that are in the air at one time. Back to my Boeing heritage. We have a lot of airplanes, a lot of transformation airplanes in the air, and a lot going on at the bank at one time. And how do we ensure all of those land, and how do we ensure all of those transformation programs deliver on the results that our customers expect? And I think we're doing that through a transformation program office that myself and a few of my colleagues lead. We're doing it through great partnerships with innovative companies like Infosys. We're doing it by hiring additional talent into HSBC. I've hired recently a new group chief information officer, Steve Van Wyck, who had great experience at PNC and ING and Morgan Stanley. I've hired Sonali Goel to run our operations globally, who was at JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. and really tried to build a best of industry team to enable this transformation program. We recently just hired Jeff Conway as our Chief Operating Officer of our wholesale business out of State Street as well. And then we found tremendous leaders within the organization who have a long track record at HSBC, who are also taking on bigger roles, such as Dave Grimmie, who is our Chief Operating Officer of Asia, Stacy Aliato, who's our Deputy Chief Operating Officer. They have 30 and 25 years with the bank respectively. So blending talent that's been with the bank with fresh talent from the outside to have the right team, the right partners, the right programs for this transformation journey that's ahead of us.
It's a remarkable story of combining the talent that you have within the group, but then also the external hires that you spoke about. And it just struck me, right? The geographies that you hired, and Sonali's hired in Hong Kong, and then you've got Jeff and Steve coming in from the US. So it's a remarkable story of building both in-house talent and then looking for what is the best available in the market.
Yeah, that's right. And I think the other thing that we've done, Mohit, is really focus on diversity. So at my top team, it's 72% women as the senior executives at my table, which is a flip of what it was a year ago. And we have all nationalities represented from around the world there. We have, folks who grew up in China, folks who grew up in India, folks who grew up in Russia, folks who grew up in Europe or in the US. And it's quite a diverse team. An ethnically diverse team, as well as diversity of thought and diversity of experience. And I've always found that the more diverse team you have, the better you're able to function and execute. And I would say this team is the best I've ever worked with in my entire career. And I think it positions us well for this transformation journey.
That's a very high bar and a very high benchmark you've set for your peers, John, in terms of the diversity and just the overall composition of the team. And I guess because the economic environment is going to be tough for the next couple of years. You've got a low interest rate regime, you've got potential loan losses, and so from a bank perspective, there's a huge focus on the cost to income ratios, exploiting digitization and automation. How are you and your teams thinking about using this to really change the cost curve over the long term for HSBC?
Yeah, it's a great question. You're right. The lower for longer interest rates do make it more challenging for all financial institutions to make net interest margin. And so we have to find a way to make that up in other areas of growth in the bank, as well as reducing costs. And the nice thing about digitization and transformation is not only do you get better capabilities for your customers, but you also lower your ultimate cost base in the bank. And we've done that in our first year of the transformation, and we are very focused on our cost base as we go forward. And if you look at what every day it takes to service customers, there's a fair amount of cost that can be taken out through digitization. But of course, to reduce costs, you have to invest in digital. And we've got a great program over the next few years to invest in technology and digitization. We've got great support from our board to make those investments, and it will return the cost savings over the period as well to continue HSBC's journey to a larger ratio between what it costs to run this bank and then our revenue that we bring in accordingly. We do believe that there's expansion capability there. So it's going to be a great journey digitization wise, but also produce some terrific financial results.
Right, right. And you spoke about the cost and you spoke about the complexity, John. Now, a lot of the cost and the complexity come from, the multiple data centers you have. You have a large, obviously, global IT estate. You long had a vision for transitioning to the cloud. And how do you see the cloud in financial services? Are there any specific challenges that you see which are different from the sectors that you've successfully, moved to the cloud in your previous careers?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mohit. I think the cloud presents tremendous opportunity for new technology capabilities, for scalability, for security, for resiliency. for innovation. And we do partner with Google, with Microsoft, with AWS, and with many SaaS providers for cloud capabilities. But I would say, to your question, the difference with financial services compared to many other industries is we do think very thoughtfully and carefully about the risks and controls around the platforms that we migrate to the cloud, that they wind up being more resilient when they're in the cloud than they would be in a local data center. They wind up being more secure in a cloud environment than they would be in our local platforms. Resiliency and security are extremely important for our customers, for our regulators, and for all our constituents. And so as we look to the cloud, I would say we are more careful than I've seen in other industries on our decisions to move things to the cloud, the checks that we make, the security improvements, the data analysis and being sure that data is secure. There's a lot of talk today around data sovereignty and data privacy. And so being sure that that is all covered. So it is a much more deliberate, focused process. Takes a little longer than other industries, but when you're securing folks' financial data, you want to be absolutely sure you've done all the right things.
Right, and you do have a very ambitious plan. And I think, again, on the cloud journey, HSBC has been a leader, and everything that you've spoken about really goes towards continuing that push and that imperative. And this links to a sort of a related question, right? Which is about the impact of digital disruption on the boardrooms. And uniquely among operating executives, John, you've served on several boards. I can't think of a single other operating executive I've ever met who's been on as many boards and has that richness and diversity of experiences. So wearing both your hats, right, your non-exec hat and your exec hat, how are boardrooms reacting to digital disruption? Do you think the composition of the boardrooms themselves, the nature of conversations, have you seen them changing over the past decade?
Most definitely. And I'll never forget my first public board that I joined in 2014 was the Bank of New York Mellon. And I had gotten the call actually while on holiday in Europe from a recruiter who said, the Bank of New York Mellon would like you to join their board of directors. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I don't come from a financial services background at the time. And they said, no, they specifically want you because of your technology experience. And they want you to eventually chair the technology committee of the board. And, banks are becoming digital companies, technology companies. And so that's why we want you on the board. And then I've watched, whether it's through my board work with DocuSign or Cisco Foods or Illumio or many others, that the agenda in the boardroom is more and more around digital transformation. You don't have a board meeting anymore without at least one or two topics, and this is in all industries, focused around digital transformation. And the boards of all companies now need digital expertise on their board. And that could be a specialist, as Bank of New York Mellon asked me to join, or it could be that you are educating your board more and more on digital transformation. We've added some great new board members to HSBC's board, like Steve Guggenheimer and Eileen Murray, both with great technology and operations background in this past year. I've spent a lot of time with our board going through the technology and transformation agenda. Just in December, I presented our technology strategy to them. And it's fun for me because I can sort of try to wear both hats when I'm thinking about how to present to the board, not just what I want to communicate, but if I was sitting in their shoes, what would they want to hear? And in fact, later this afternoon, I'm presenting twice to our board on how we measure the success of our technology transformations, our key management information, and also on operational resilience. So it is top of mind, I think, in every boardroom around the world.
Now, it is remarkable, John, the transformation that you spoke about in the board agenda. And then, like you mentioned, because you've been on both sides of the table, it helps you, tailor and enrich a narrative because you understand where the counterparty is coming from.
Absolutely. And I do think that that relationship between the executive team and the board in the discussion around technology and transformation is really, really important. The boards anymore can't just leave everything to the executive team. It's their fiduciary responsibility as a board member to understand what the technology transformation program's on. And I understand you've recently joined a board as well, Mohit, so congratulations on that.
Yes, no, thank you for that, John. And I still a very new board member. I only joined in December. So I have to reach out to you for your advice on making the most of the
That'd be
appointment.
fun.
But John, just pivoting to the pandemic now, right? Because we haven't spent a lot of time talking about the pandemic. And one of the things that everybody is very curious about is the trends that we've seen over the past year, right? Whether it's in terms of remote working or it's in terms of looking at alternate talent pools or changing customer expectations. What is your sense of which one of these trends will define the industry for the future? How do you think this is going to impact banking in the long run, and what do banks really need to do to exploit this disruption that we've seen?
It was amazing. A year ago, I traveled around the world to India and then to Dubai and then to Hong Kong, just as the pandemic was starting to break. And then very quickly we shifted, 235,000 employees. And if you count our contractor relationships and such, many more than that, all to working from home. Literally overnight as the world kind of shut down in the February, March timeframe. And I'll tell you, if you'd asked me a year ago, could we have done that that fast without disruption to our customers? I would have thought probably not. But it was really a heroic effort amongst the technology teams, the operations teams, and all of our employees who, figured out how to do their jobs from home, enabled by the right technology capabilities. And that continues today. And I think we learned a lot from that on how to care for customers. We very quickly enabled Zoom globally for our customers to interact with us. So instead of a relationship manager, having to go see someone or do a phone call, they could do a Zoom session with them. And that made a big difference for our customers. We quickly enabled digital signature for all the capabilities of getting a mortgage or a credit card or signing up a bank account. We enabled a lot of artificial intelligence capabilities and trying to understand customers' needs were changing. For example, in Hong Kong, we implemented AI on the backs of the ATM machines to take a look at when they would need to be replenished with cash, because historically we just had a schedule of when they'd be replenished. But with the pandemic, we were seeing very different patterns. And in some markets, people were getting more cash out. In other markets, people were getting less cash out. And so we needed intelligence on when those machines needed to be filled up. So there's just a lot of opportunity as customer patterns shift. We see a lot less checks being processed, a lot more online payments being processed. We see customers wanting to open accounts in multiple countries now. Because they aren't able to travel as much, but they want to be able to do business in multiple countries digitally. And so we see folks who have accounts in one country want to open an account in another country. So we're enabling that capability. And there's just a tremendous amount of new business that has come about through this pandemic. It's kind of the bright spot in what has otherwise been, very, very, very challenging for all of us. And many of us have lost friends and loved ones. Unfortunately, we've lost a few colleagues at HSBC that we mourn, and the pandemic continues. But the bright spot out of it is we've helped our customers transact a completely different way than they used to.
Yeah, no, you're right, John. I think the human toll has been horrific. But again, it is so exciting to hear about how adaptable HSBC has been. And I'm reminded of I think, to paraphrase a quote from Darwin, it is not the strongest that survive, it is the one most willing to change. And clearly, I guess in the course of the pandemic, that that openness to change is very visible in the HSBC DNA. And
it is, we to your point, Mohit, we founded the bank 156 years ago, long before you and I were around, and we founded it with the premise of providing solutions to our customers and then adapting and changing with them. And over those 156 years, we've had to survive, numerous world wars and other challenges. And now we'll get through the pandemic and we'll adopt and what our customers need and adapt accordingly for their challenges.
It's a remarkable success story, and one that shows no sign of letting up, John. So finally, to wrap it up, it'd be great to hear about what excites you most about the future of technology. You obviously had a look at technology with many different roles. What is it that you think is coming down the curve that we should be getting ready for and getting excited about?
Well, there's so many things happening in innovation, whether they're coming out of Silicon Valley or out of Asia or many other places in the world, that are enabling new capabilities. I'm very much a car buff, and so I've really enjoyed seeing the evolution of electric cars. But I think that is a piece of what's happening in our environmental and sustainability focus for the world. I do think that every company will have to think differently about their environmental footprint, about their sustainability, about how they operate in the world in the future. HSBC's come out very strong, saying that we will be internally carbon neutral by 2030, and I'm spending a lot of time on that project. And then, with our customers, adopting the Paris Accord and the 2050 goals accordingly, and really helping our customers with their ESG journeys as well. So I think that's one of the innovations I'm excited about, and how digitization and transformation can enable the ESG agenda in many ways. And then I think, there's a lot of discussion and talk around quantum computing and what it's going to be able to do to artificial intelligence and some of the things that we've all been talking about for a while. But we're finally starting to see some reality behind it, and the ability to crunch tremendous amounts of data and get insights into what's happening. We process $2.2 trillion worth of payments every single day at HSBC. Think about harnessing intelligence around that, on how customer payment habits are changing and what we can do to enable more capabilities in that space. And so I think that whole ability to crunch more numbers faster for what's needed in the world is important. And I'd say finally, just seeing what's happened with the pandemic and these vaccines that have been produced so quickly, and what's happening in medicine and the ability to use transformation and digitization in how we create vaccines and how we create new drugs to combat terrible diseases. That is really, really accelerating, and it's fun. And HSBC is a supplier of financing to many of those folks in the medical industries as well. So a lot happening around the world, a lot to be excited about every day as we started out 2021, even with many challenges that we face. And Mohit, I really, really appreciate the chance to be with you here today and the partnership that Infosys and HSBC share.
It is very exciting, John, and thank you for sharing that very wide portfolio, right, from medical technologies through to quantum computing. And if I just pick up the thread that you had on the green economy, it's again something that HSBC and Infosys have in common: our commitment to sustainable goals and the Paris goals. We obviously have a very different business, so we don't have many of the complexities of a banking portfolio. But we've already become carbon neutral in 2020, 30 years ahead of the Paris goals is something very, very proud of. And again, just alignment of goals and priorities and purpose with HSBC.
Absolutely. It's great to be a partner with you in that.
Well, thank you again, John. Thank you so much for making time for this very insightful chat. It was lovely speaking to you, and look forward to catching up again soon.
Thank you, Mohit. It was great to catch up with you, and look forward to chatting about how our companies work together, as well as the board work that we each are responsible for, and the innovations that are to come. So thanks for the time today.
Thank you, John.